Tobela, greetings to everyone, especially for our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. Togosani to the Ngonis, Lochani to the Zongas, Da to the vendors, and to a whole lot more of our brothers and sisters, especially African people, because this message, not only it's a message directed to you, but it's a message directed to people, to all people in general, especially those who didn't understand our ways back in time. Today I just felt like it's a very important day and a very special day to talk about a very pivotal issue. An issue or a topic that which I feel we have lost touch with back in time because of westernization, religions, and a whole lot more. The topic that I wished to discuss with you today is how did we go about making rain back in time? How did our ancestry go about creating rain even in the toughest times of droughts? But they were able to. They managed to make it rain. How did they do it? I am saying this because I myself come from a bloodline of the very same people who were rainmakers back in time. I know in all cultures, we used to have such kind of people in a variety of cultures, especially in African cultures. People who were gifted in this kind of field. People who made it rain. People who calmed the storms back in time during harsh storms. So I am saying this out of experience, out of things that I have seen back in time, the last remainings of them. I saw them, even though I was young. I saw them. My great-great-grandpa from my paternal side. The very same man, an old man, who used to wear a regalia of this very same fashion, the one that I'm wearing right now. I saw him making it rain back in time, even though I was young. Then the question comes as to what is it that these people were doing? How were they doing it? Well, it starts like this. For those of you who are religious, they would know and understand that there's a saying which stays, as above, so below. Thy will be done on earth as it is in the heavens. Even though quite a lot of people don't understand this metaphor, because the statement itself, it's a metaphor. There's a message behind the message within this very same statement that I'm making at this present moment in time. But thato ya gago ga e phethege mo lefase jwale ka ga e direga magodimong. In body language, that is what it means. Back in time, when we were still ourselves as Africans, when we were still in tune with reality, truth, and nature, before the distortion of our ways of living by those coming from the West. Our end year was not in December. Our year ended, or the beginning of our year, if I may put it that way, used to begin in September. Because in September, that is whereby or when nature restores itself, coming from spring, coming from winter, then spring, then our summer was beginning during that time, during September time. Not like the way we are being taught by those coming from the West, that our year ends December time and it begins January time, 1st of January. That is not how we viewed it. Because ours was in line with cosmology, was in line with what we see up there from a saying that states, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in the heavens." Because we saw our times as incongruent with those of the inanimate objects that we see above us, the stars. During those times, September time, when the trees were starting to bloom, the flowers were starting to become beautiful, and nature was beginning to say, "Here I am. I am now raising my voice and becoming louder." There were ceremonies in each and every culture in African philosophy, whereby rituals of rain were to be held. How it all started, or how did they go about doing these rituals back in time? It was like this. First, you should remember that our people back in time viewed Mother Earth as their mother. And by looking up there, looking at the sun, they viewed the sun as masculine, as our father. From a saying in the very same Bible that you people read, that in the beginning was the Son, and the Son was God. The very same sun that they are talking about, they are just talking about the very same sun that you see each and every single day, rising in the east and setting in the west. That is the sun that they were talking about. Even in the Bible, when they talk about the Son of God, most of you still think that they are talking about, a guy, a white man from Europe and the likes, because you still hanging to that kind of philosophy. You still have got his pictures in your houses and the likes. But in retrospect, in reality, what these people were referring to, they were referring to the very same sun that you see each and every single day of your life. That gives you light. During those times, back in time, in those ceremonies that we are talking about of rainmaking, a word from the chief or from the king, in all of the African cultures back in time, it was as if these people knew exactly when. It was as if these cultures all over Africa, they were communicating like we do recently with our mobile phones, internet and the likes. Their internet was the spirit realm, because they knew when exactly the ceremonies were supposed to happen and be held. A word would come out from the chief that go out there Make it a point you organize all of these people that we knew were gifted in this field. People we knew had knowledge or come from bloodlines of people who were rainmakers back in time, because we knew them back in time. Every village would be, a word would be sent to each and every village. Then a date would be set. Then a gathering would occur in the chief scroll, I mean to say, whereby first they would be discussing as to where to start. What is it that they are going to do first going forth? Because that was the right time, the right moment of rain coming pretty soon in the very same near future. What these people would do, all men within such a village or within such an area, they would go out there and look for anything that was not supposed to be there in nature. Things that, dirtified Mother Earth. We used to call them the Biela back in time. I just don't know, or I just can't find a word to use, an English word to use for you to get to understand as to what is it that we are talking about here. The Biela are things that were not supposed to be there in nature. Things, that, our ancestors believed are the things that made Mother Earth sick. For Mother Earth not to get pregnant from the waters coming from above, referring to rain itself. What these people did was that all men would go. It was tons and tons and tons of them. You can imagine all over Africa, people doing the same thing, almost at the same time, even though it cannot be exactly the same time, but you can imagine them going out there in the wild, going to clean Mother Earth, because in our African cultures, our philosophies are saying that before you can impregnate each and every woman, the woman should be cleansed first. The woman must be clean first. So thus our Mother Earth was supposed to be clean before she could be impregnated by the father's sweets coming from up there. That is how we viewed reality. It was symbolic. Each and every single thing we saw was symbolic and was in line with nature and truth. Men would go out there, they would search for the Biela Janajewe, things that were not supposed to be there in nature. It would be dead animals. It would be, quite a variety of things that were not supposed to be there in nature. But the problem is just because our people have lost touch with reality now. When you go out there, when you go into the wild, what you see there, it's just mumbo jumbo, it's just gibberish, it's just dirtiness. Mother Nature being swarmed into this, pampasses that you people just throw into the waters. Things that are not supposed to be there in nature, that you just put there and you think you are doing the right thing, but in actuality you are messing up with what feeds you. You are messing up with the breasts of your mothers. That is how we view the reality. Men would go out there after collecting all of those. They would bring all of those back into the royal kraal for them to be incinerated by fire, because we knew that fire cleanses. So fire was used to to ban those things, the very same things that I'm talking about. This mumbo jumbo stuff that we just throw into the wild, thinking that it's just the wild, it's not connected to us. But in actuality and in spirituality, it is something that is connected to us. Then again, with women, our women, because we believed they are the ones, that played a very major role in this regard. So with women, all women of the village, all women of the village, of the villages, if I may put it that way, all over African cultures, they would also be performing a very particular ceremony of their own, a ritual of their own. Wherever wherever they would be performing such, they will be having a drum. We call it the mother drum in African culture. It's a drum made from morula tree. And there's a very spiritual significance why the drum was made from morula tree. Because the very same drum that I'm talking about, the sound that it produces, in science, we say it makes a vibrational frequency of 432 Hertz, a frequency that is in synchrony with the vibratory frequency of Mother Earth and nature itself. It will be 3 drums there. It will be the mother drum, it will be the father drum made from a tree we call Muhileri in Pedi language, and another drum called the sun drum. That drum, I just don't know, I just forgot as to which tree was this drum made from, but the drums were supposed to be 3. Then what these women would be doing there, performing the ceremony, they will be like semi-naked in a way. And there was a very spiritual significance why they were like that when performing such a ritual, when the men were out there looking for the Viela out there. The women on their feet and on their foot, they would be wearing I don't know what they call it, those rattle making sounds like instruments, the cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, those things that make this cha-cha-cha-cha-cha sound. When these people were busy singing those songs and performing these rituals, they would be singing in a secular pattern, mimicking the roles of the stars up there, performing these rituals, making the sounds, the cha-cha-cha-cha sound from this rattle sound, the cha-cha-cha sound, mimicking the rain, pouring on Mother Earth, making the very same sound that I'm talking about, this cha-cha-cha-cha sound. And in that way, that is how they communicated with nature, and nature conspired on their behalf, and the molecules up there would be, rearranged in a particular way whereby, after this universal constructive law of attraction of rain by these people in a collective form, rain would come, and it would come back in time as these people used to perform these rituals. What these women were doing, them being semi-naked in our culture, that is why this ritual, whereby women were doing or performing this kind of their rituals, men were not allowed to be there, because what these women were doing, that, back in time, they used to call it taboo for a woman, bosoms, for a woman to be semi-naked like that. What these people were doing, allegorically speaking, is that they were arousing the father up there. They were arousing the father up there so that the father can be aroused up there. Then after the father being aroused, the father would then, later on, ejaculate, and, in the form of rain and impregnate Mother Earth back in time, because that is exactly how we used to do it. It was all symbolical. Then, after all of this was done, another ceremony whereby all of these people, women and men now, would gather again into at the chief's kraal, whereby a ceremony again would be performed, whereby the ashes of the very same Diviela where we've been discussing about earlier on. The people who came from, this rainmaking bloodlines would collect those ashes. Then young children of the age, from the ages of 5 up until the age of 10, would be gathered. Then this ashes, some of the ashes from there would be collected. Then water would, they would go into the river or into a dam, nearby dam, with this person coming from, rainmaking bloodline individuals. Then some ashes would be put into the small buckets of these young children. Then they would go there, then they would, fetch water from there. Then when they come back into the chief's kraal, they would sing a song. It's just that, I cannot sing the song for you right now. If you want to know what song these people have been singing, you will ask in the comment below. Then we will tell you as to what song were these young ones singing. When they get into the chief's kraal, singing along the way, going there, these young ones would be instructed to splash their waters up into the sky, shouting "Pula, Pula," meaning rain, rain, let it rain. Then our ancestors believed by so doing they were cleansing the air up there. Then with time it would rain. And in most cases, in most cases, yes. I remember the time when, my great-grandfather performed this ritual with his people who were coming from the very same bloodline. When we did this ritual, it didn't even take, a couple of hours for rain to fall. Rain formed, then we were disturbed in the very same place whereby we were performing this ritual. Then it rained. We went home running. That day, I still remember very well, even though I was young. This is how we used to do it back in time. Then came a time whereby, our people experienced things like droughts, climatic conditions like drought. When those happened, there's an animal that we call the klipspringer. We call it kome in Beli language. It stays up there in the mountains. Our ancestors looked at nature precisely and very much intelligently. This animal, they knew very well that this animal could survive without water for a longer period of time. But it knew exactly where to find the waters in the caves, in the mountains up there. So in times of drought, during those times, what these people did is that they went up there in the mountains, the main, in search of this animal, the Gome animal, the clip springer. They would search for that animal. They would bring it home alive. They were not killing the animal. They would bring it home alive. Then they would lock the animal into a particular room overnight or for a couple of days, performing specific rituals again. Then afterwards, they would release the animal. After releasing the animal, they would follow the animal because they would keep the animal until the animal is thirsty. Then they would run after the animal. Then the animal would go up there in the mountain because it remembers, it knows very well where the waters are. Then they would go there and fetch those waters because the very same waters that they find in there, in those sacred and secret places in the caves, were the waters that were used again in these rituals of rainmaking back in time. Then again, there was a very specific animal of importance that we call the marabou bird. The marabou bird, which in Bedi language we call Makaileja in Bedi language, the marabou bird. These birds, the flocks of these birds, spoke to our ancestors back in time. Because this bird during winter time, when there would be no rains, these birds would fly to the west. They would fly to the west, flying above the oceans. Then when rain is about to come back, these birds would come back to Africa back in time. Then they knew that, that was a sign that, we are going to have rain during the seasons, these rainy seasons of our times back in time. When they don't see them, they knew that we are going to have difficulties, we are going to have droughts this year. Looking again up there, studying the inanimate objects up in the skies. That is how they viewed the reality, these people. That is how they were in synchrony with the reality back in time. The story is very long. I wish I wish I had much more time to tell you where the story, and the exact story, but I believe that this glimpse of this information that I shared with you will, reside into your hearts and get to know your power as people of this earth and as people of the African land, that you do possess power within you, that which you are not aware of. I hope that this message finds a way to your heart. You get to find out. You get to know. Africa back in time. I wish for you to subscribe on this channel for more revelations of the things that we used to perform back in time, and also press the like button, because when you do that, you are supporting this movement of reawakening the spirits of our forefathers back in time, the knowledge that we used to have back in time, which I believe we are losing because of westernizations and religions that disturbed these ways of living of our people. I thank you.